right, so we've got Kevin Nowlan here from the Center for Prevention of Abuse. And Kevin has a long history of working with Center for Prevention of Abuse, going back to 2002, I believe, I read.
Yeah.
You've been a prevention educator, transitional housing supervisor, a few other positions, but now you are the chief operating officer. And you get to work with the great Carol Myrna and a lot of other great staff over there.
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
Center for Prevention of Abuse has been a long partner of ours here at United Way. We're very proud to support you guys in all your efforts to, well, there's a lot of different things that you do. So I kind of want to start with some of the stats organization-wide that you guys had last year that you promote on your website, but 9,460 nights in safe shelter provided last year, fiscal year 24, 2,014 orders of protection, and 41,599 students reached through prevention education. I know some of that's like Aaron's Law. I've got students here in District 108. I don't actually I think yesterday or the day before is when we're recording this. My youngest actually sat through one of those presentations. So I know when the school district sent that out, I was like, oh, I know exactly who's doing that.
That's right.
When I got the email from the school, without even clicking on the flyer, I knew exactly where that was coming from. So there's a lot of things that you guys do.
Sure.
But if you could just share with us, what does the Center for Prevention of Abuse do for those who are not fully aware?
Absolutely. So we have quite a few services. I guess probably what people think of the most is our domestic violence work that we do. And that is a combination of both outreach type services, which would be groups, meeting with people one-on-one, clinical services, therapeutic services, and then shelter. We have a shelter in Peoria, and then we have a shelter in Pekin, where we provide immediate respite for individuals that are fleeing domestic violence. Safe place they can stay, and then start working on some safety planning, start working on some goals towards self-sufficiency, absent of somebody abusive in their life. With our domestic violence program, we also have Orders of Protection Assistance, which is one of the programs that we're so fortunate to have funding through the Pekin United Way with. But an order of protection would be where people get a court order that requires an abusive individual to stay with them. People think of it like a restraining order, but in Illinois, it's called an order of protection.
I'm sure that gets confused pretty frequently.
Yeah,
with some
absolutely.
People,
but we know, we all know it all means the same in essence.
At the end of the day, as long as it works, right?
Yep.
That's what matters.
All right. We have a partner abuse intervention program, which domestic violence is a learned behavior. So this is a program for people to unlearn how to be abusive to their partners. So that's 26 weeks of sessions. It's usually court ordered or mandated, but people can volunteer and they attend classes to learn how to have healthy relationships with their partners. We have sexual assault services where we provide therapeutic and clinical services to individuals who've been assaulted, whether that's current or in the past, and they provide therapy to those individuals. With that program, we also go into hospitals. So anytime somebody's sexually assaulted and they present at the emergency room, whether that's here in Pekin or in Peoria, we send an advocate, make sure that they understand the rights afforded to them, make sure they know the future services that are available to them at the center, but also walk them through evidence collection kit and their legal rights in regards to that. We have a Safe from the Start program. We provide therapy to kids under 5 and under who have witnessed any type of violence, and that's through art therapy and play therapy. Because if we can, work with them when they're young, then heal, then better outcomes in the future for sure for that kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll work towards it when you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something like that. I'm assuming it would stay with you for life, but anything you can do to give them the tools to try and work with it, try and deal with it in some way, shape, or form,
And give the parents those tools too.
Yeah.
To understand what their kids are dealing with and how to intervene when things are happening at home, for sure.
Yeah, I can only imagine the mess in your mind of trying to deal with some of those things.
So we have Adult Protective Services. And in that program, we go out and investigate and intervene in cases of elder abuse or abuse of individuals who are disabled. And that's funded by the Illinois Department on Aging primarily. And they also fund another program of ours, which is a long-term care ombudsman program. And we have advocates that go into all the nursing homes or long-term care facilities and advocate on behalf of residents in there, make sure that their rights are being afforded to them there. We have a human trafficking program where we provide housing and casework for individuals who've been trafficked. And what you had mentioned earlier with Aaron's Law is our prevention program. And, most of our programs are intervention type, right, where we're helping people who have been victims. But I think we can all agree that if we can prevent this stuff before it happens, that's better. So that's why we're out seeing all those kids in the school talking about healthy relationships, sexual assault prevention, sexual harassment, bullying. So if we can work with the kids and intervene early and prevent early, then hopefully we have better outcomes in the future.
Absolutely. I think a couple of those other things you mentioned, it's important, I think, for people to realize about those things like the elder abuse and human trafficking, and be aware of those kind of things to cut down on those.
Absolutely.
I know I've traveled recently. You go into airports and you see all the signs about, hey, recognize this and that. I think it was something about, somebody has control over the documents and stuff like that. That's a sign. Sure. And, I've got a background in law enforcement, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of human trafficking. I mean, that is, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the top 3 or 4 illegal trades, businesses, whatever, in the world. I mean, it's much bigger than most people want to really think about. It's huge, and it's here.
It's definitely
it's here. I mean, you hear about it every now and then, but I think it's at a much greater scale than people want to think about. And the elder abuse, our senior population, the baby boomers, are a big percentage of our population, and think about cyber crimes and cyber threats and things that come through emails. Like it's so easy for people to be taken advantage of in ways like that.
Yeah.
It's not just the old contractor knocking on the door and say, "I'll clean your gutters for X amount of dollars," and then they scam them. It's digital. It's all so many different ways these days.
Yeah, usually it's for elder abuse, it's a family or friend, that's taking advantage of them, unfortunately, or abusing them, and which makes it that much more difficult too. In that, the person that's caring for me is also the person that's abusing for me. So when the center comes in and says we can offer these services, it's who's gonna take care of me, right? I know that they're abusing me, but who's gonna take care for me? And that's a hard hurdle, right?
I'm sure you battle the but they're a loved one and they love me,
for
and
sure.
I love them.
For sure, we don't want anything bad to happen to them.
Right.
Just want the abuse to stop, right?
Yeah, that's got to be a really tough one to deal with, and I'm sure it's got to be tough for your staff too. A lot of these cases, I can only imagine what they see on a daily basis and how they try to deal with it.
So we just try to have the best culture we can in our workplace, because it is, this is some dark stuff you're dealing with. So to try to make the workplace as light as we possibly can, to keep that morale up, which is important, right? Because this is a high burnout kind of work and field, and to try to do as much as we can. Self-care. We're talking about self-care all the time, right? So take good care of yourself, and our coworkers taking care of each other, because it's difficult work.
I've often wondered that in my year here at the United Way, that when I think about what you guys do and some of our other partner agencies, and it's like, boy, some of what you and your staff deal with is some really heavy stuff.
Yeah.
We get some phone calls every now and then, some things, and we're only hearing a small piece of it, and then we'll refer the phone call or something out to whatever agency needs to get that phone call, but we're only hearing a small piece of the story. And we know it just goes so many layers deeper, and there's a lot of people dealing with a lot of things.
Yeah,
so I can only imagine how much deeper it gets. So, but on to the programs. Like you said, you got so many programs that you guys are dealing with, and a lot of great programs. Unfortunately, I like to joke that we don't have a infinite number of large donors that like to cut us $1 million checks left and right. So we have funded the court advocacy, part of the court advocacy for you guys in the Carroll House of Hope.
Yeah.
But what, you kind of mentioned the order of protection. Are there any challenges or stumbling blocks that people get into trying to get those? Yeah.
So first of all, we appreciate the support of the Pekin United Way, right? It's instrumental in the work that we're doing. So thank you for that. So over here in Tazewell, we have advocates in the courthouse. And those advocates help individuals get orders of protection. So somebody comes into the courthouse, right, and they send them up to see us, right, and our job is to help them with the paperwork, which is the legal paperwork. And there's lots of different remedies, they call it, that you can petition for on these emergency orders to start out. Everything from the house that they're living in to the children to finances to the gun to there's lots of different remedies that can petition. And our caseworker's job is to walk through all that stuff with them. But first and foremost, our caseworker's job is to talk to them about what's happening to them and work on a safety plan right away. How can I keep myself safe as best as I possibly can from this person? So that might be a code word with the kids, or it might be a light on at the house that the neighbor knows to call the police, or it might be taking a different route than my regular route to work every day, or it might be letting the school know what to be alert of, and
Right.
having backup documentations copied because they'll get destroyed,
I mean, a
these
lot of
kind of
things can
things,
be
right?
replaced. You can,
for sure.
there's hurdles to it, but you can
Right.
you can find another place to
Yeah.
live. You can find another car, but you don't get another chance of life.
No, that's for sure. That's for
Yeah.
sure. So then they help them get these emergency orders. Just to give you a frame of reference, I know you mentioned our numbers as a whole, but just in Tazewell County alone, our last fiscal year we had about 700 folks that came through the courthouse here, right over here at the courthouse, get orders
Not
of
that far
protection,
away.
not
Yeah.
very far away. And that was about 760 orders that were filed last year in Tazewell County Courthouse. And then our staff provided about 2,000 hours of services to those folks that came through. So, it's a big number, right? It's a big number. So then they help them get the emergency orders. Now, what happens from that point is the individual who, they call it the respondent, but it's the person that the order's against, right? The abusive party, right?
Right.
Then they get served with the order. And as soon as they're served, that emergency order goes in effect. And in essence, it's things you have to stay away from that person, right? You can't come near them. You can't call them. You can't do what they call third-party contact, which is, I'm just going to pass a message through a friend instead, or, Facebook or whatever, the social media that they're using.
And I'm sure people try just about every way.
Oh, they
can
do it
come up
all
with.
the time.
Yeah.
But those are all violations at that point. As soon as that person's served with that emergency order, those are violations of the order, which is a criminal charge at that point, right, when they violate those. But then a hearing is set up, and then a hearing, they call it a plenary hearing, which is the person that's served with that order gets a chance to respond to it, right? And the judge then determines, should this emergency order continue into a plenary order? And if so, then it goes for 2 years, 2 years, and it's extended for, and with those same remedies that were on that order. So in that case, then it just gets extended. And hopefully it works. Ultimately, it is a piece of paper, right? But that piece of paper then comes with criminal liability for the person for violating what's in effect. And, when somebody's arrested over and over and over again for violating it, then maybe they'll stop doing it. And it does come with consequences, jail time and everything else that comes along with that.
Yeah. Eventually, that all stacks up, and
does.
that doesn't look good to a judge or
No.
a jury if you've been repeatedly offending
Right.
for all that. So
Yeah, and judges
it's like a
don't
resume,
yeah.
not a good one.
Judges don't like when they say, don't do this, and you do it anyway. So that's for sure.
Yep. That definitely makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, they keep very busy at that courthouse. I mean, it's all day long, people coming in and hearings all day long. So, but another important, our caseworkers do a wonderful job over there is making sure they get hooked up with other services, and they might be center services, shelter services at our Pekin shelter, the Carroll House of Hope, or any other services that might be available to them, which is the domestic violence counseling or therapeutic services, or maybe it overlaps into elder abuse, right? It certainly can, or maybe it overlaps into human trafficking, or maybe it overlaps into some of our other programs. The kids that witness the violence, right? To get those clinical services for the kids. But our other community partners here in Pekin as well, right? Or in Peoria, or throughout our service area. Whether that's the Boys and Girls Club or the Salvation Army or whoever that might be, to get some relationships established there through referrals to get them hooked up with some other services as well.
And we've got a lot of great partners that are. That's one thing I've been struck with in the year here. A lot of great partners that are willing to collaborate and work together and figure out solutions to the many problems that are out there. You know, and it's not unique problems here; it's problems everywhere. But hey, put our heads together and hey, there's a problem. Let's find a solution. So,
right. Absolutely.
You mentioned the Carroll House of Hope, and it's been around for a long time, but some people may not be aware of it. What exactly is that? Could you explain what that is?
Sure, it's an emergency shelter. We have an emergency shelter in Peoria, and we have one in Pekin, and the one in Pekin is called Carroll House of Hope, and that name comes from Dr. Wright, who's a long-term physician here in Pekin, who donated the building originally in honor of his daughter who passed away. His name was Carol. So we have been providing emergency shelter there for a long time. An emergency shelter is designed to be a safe place to go due to violence at home. Domestic violence primarily, but it could be sexual violence or it could be trafficking as well, but it's primarily domestic violence. And it's a safe place to go. It's usually the worst day in somebody's life when they're showing up there. They come in, we provide emotional support to that individual, make sure that they know what's happened to them is not their fault. Make sure that they know that there is hope, and then make sure that they work on a safety plan there as well right away. I mean, we are always working on safety plans immediately.
Yeah.
Because the most dangerous time for an individual in an abusive relationship is when they leave, because the abusive partner, domestic violence is all about power and control. One person controlling another, and the abusive partner. Often their identity is based on being controlled and charged, and when somebody leaves them, they've
lost all of that.
They lose the control, so that's when they become the most dangerous.
Either physical or mental control,
absolutely,
whatever. Yeah,
right. So
or financial control, whatever the case may be. Yeah.
So that safety plan is step one. I mean, we got to work on that right away, and then from there, it's the emotional support. But then it's starting to working on. A technical term would be a service plan, but really it's what do we want? What do we want? And it's not us deciding what you want, it's them deciding what they want for themselves, because they need to have that feeling of control back in their life. So then our caseworker's job is to kind of, not guide isn't even the right term, but what are you wanting for yourself? Well, I'd like my own place, or I'd like a job, or I'd like to continue with my education, or I'd like to move. I'd like to go be closer to family. He's cut all my family off. I'd like to be closer with them. And then our caseworker's job is to help them achieve the goals that they establish for
makes
themselves.
sense. Okay, all right, cool. Now we got a game plan and we know what you want. Let's figure out how
Right.
you're going to get from point A to point
Absolutely.
B. Now I would assume, I hate making assumptions, but I'm going to assume anyway, that the other residents of the Carroll House, by and large, when somebody comes in, there's a lot of, open arms and support from them of like, hey, we got you.
Right.
It's okay. We're here. We've been through it, and we're on this path too, and we're figuring it out, and we're right here with you step by step.
For sure. You're absolutely right. And we offer, a formal mechanism for that too, right?
Okay.
Which would be support groups, right? Where individuals that have gone through the same situation get together, and one of our staffs there kind of facilitate the process, but an opportunity for individuals to talk with each other who have gone through the same sort of circumstances. And it's kind of amazing too, because when people are going through domestic violence, there's a lot of self-blame. Self-esteem's been tore down to the ground, right? Because that's important for an abusive partner. Got to tear down their self-esteem so they don't leave me. Nobody wants me. Nobody else would have me. I'm worthless. I'm good for nothing, right? Building that self-esteem is important, right? And when they hear from other people in the group, they hear those same tactics used. It's almost like a playbook for abusive individuals, that they use these same tactics because they're reliable tactics that work for abusive people. But when they start hearing it, oh, you went through the same thing? They did that to you just like they did to me? They gain, oh, I see, and some understanding of what's being done to them. It's not their fault, right? It's not their fault.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It gives them, light bulb comes on, and they finally see the perspective of like, oh, okay, wasn't
not
me.
alone.
I thought it was me all this time, but it's not me. So, so what are the future plans for the Carroll House?
Well, we're excited. We've got some future plans. The city of Pekin has been a wonderful partner. We were just with the city, working with the city, and we've actually been provided with some city-owned land. And we're going to build a new emergency shelter here in Pekin, which is important because we need a little bit more space, and we want to make sure that we are up to speed, as fully accessible as we possibly can be, so it's welcoming to all individuals that would need our services. We don't want any barriers to people coming in that need emergency shelter. But in addition to the shelter, we also want to have more of a footprint with all of our other services. So our sexual assault or human trafficking, our adult protective services, our long-term care ombudsman, where we want to have staff that are available here in Pekin, where people don't have to cross the river to Peoria to get some of those additional services, right?
That invisible barrier.
That invisible barrier, right? And
it goes every time.
It goes both ways.
Yes, it does.
It goes
it's
both
weird.
ways. Yeah, it is strange.
It's only 20 minutes to Peoria, but that invisible barrier of the river, I don't get it, but it's there.
But also, with working closer with our community partners here in Pekin and municipalities, and just to have a place where we can have gatherings and events and meetings and trainings, to just have more of a footprint right here downtown Pekin, so that we can make sure that we're doing our best to serve not only the residents of Pekin, but Tazewell County too.
Awesome.
So we're excited about that.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be great to have that, and that expands your number of beds.
It does
by quite a bit, doesn't it?
It does. We explain. We're hoping to get up to 23 beds, and we're currently at 16. So, and to make it a little bit more conducive too, where to feel more homey, right? Where each bedroom has its own bathroom instead of a shared bathroom, and more of a communal living space for people, and just to make it more home-like, make it more feel more home,
less
right?
institutional,
absolutely,
kind of thing, or temporary, kind of thing,
right. We want people to feel comfortable, right?
Well, that's important, and in such a situation where your whole life has been turned upside down, and you're finding yourself living in a new, strange environment, trying to pick up the pieces and figure everything out, and gosh, I can only imagine. It's everything. Everything about your life. Yeah. So I was real curious. As long as you've worked for the center, and you've been around the Carroll House of Hope and all these different things, what have you noticed, or how has that impacted your view of things? What kind of impact have you seen out of it?
Well, personally, the impact that I've seen is more recognition of understanding and walking in people's shoes, understanding that when somebody's having a bad day, we don't know all that's going on with that person, understanding that when I see things taking place in a grocery store or out in the community that kind of just set off a red flag to me, but professionally, I think the impact that I've seen is the dramatic change in people's lives, right? That have taken place due to, I say our services, but it's people doing that themselves too. It's them taking part in these services, right? And the changes in their lives as a result of moving from unhealthy relationships to being happy in independence, and sometimes moving into healthy relationships. Seeing the kids that maybe I worked with when they were little, right? And then hearing their stories when they come back as an adult to make a donation or volunteer. And, maybe it's, I don't remember necessarily, I remember them as a youth, and remember the work that I did with them, but them coming back and saying, you changed my life, So, that's important, and that keeps me vested, right? And I think it keeps our employees vested. And, we don't always see the impact of the work being done because we're there in a time of crisis often, right? But it is nice to hear from people that used our services that come back and say, you changed my lives. And often now, when I tell people what I do and where I work, and I just know them from, a friend or a family member or just an event or a training or something or other, and tell them where I work, and they say, oh, I'm familiar with this center.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine, that would give, a lot of pride in knowing that how much impact that makes, especially on the kids as they move forward. Yeah. The perspective that they get of getting the help and seeing what an unhealthy relationship is, if they've unfortunately had to experience an unhealthy relationship with their parents or guardians or whatever, and then go through the rest of their life after counseling and all that, and hopefully that gives them perspective of what an unhealthy relationship is and a healthy one, and they can go on and find those healthy relationships. Right. And when they get married and have kids or whatever, they can start a new trend in a positive way.
Break the cycle.
Break that cycle.
Break the cycle.
Yeah, because that's that's what we need to stop all these bad negative things. Is we need to break the cycles.
Absolutely, it's a learned behavior. It can be unlearned. It can be unlearned, and it can be broken. So that's the goal of all of our services, right? Prevent it in the first place, hopefully, but if not, intervene and learn those skills to be in healthy relationships so that we can break the cycle and end abuse.
Yeah. And sometimes I like to think about, you never know, even not even professionally, even personally, if you go volunteer, you do anything, you never know what one action in helping somebody, what kind of positive effect that has.
I agree.
To that generation, next generation, 4, 5, 6 generations down the road. So, whether it's your line of work or volunteering, whatever, you have no idea what those possible positive ramifications are. So, last thing I'll ask you, Kevin, is what else would you like to share about the center? Anything on the horizon or anything else that you guys do? Or
well, we're keeping busy, but I guess ultimately I just want to come across and make sure that everybody's aware of how thankful we are to the Pekin United Way, and not only the United Way of Pekin, but all the people of the community that support the efforts of the United Way, and by providing their support, just that they're aware of the good work that's being done in the community as a result. So thank you, and thanks to all the people that support the Pekin United Way.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on and sharing with us and educating people on what's new in the Center for Prevention of Abuse and what you guys have for services, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.